Well, first of all, with pop-up books, I just want to give you a couple of terminology words so that if any of you get excited about them in the near future, you will know what they are. They are called also movable books because in my collection and in most collectors' books, the majority will pop up, but some of them have pull tabs, have revolving wheels, those kind of things. So they just, and some pop-up books have all of those elements also, and you'll see some of that today. So it's pop-up books or movable books, and it's kind of become an interchangeable terminology. The people who make the books pop up are not called illustrators, they are called paper engineers. And that's really important to know that. Some pop-up books, you know, like regular books will have an author and an illustrator. Some of them have authors, illustrators, paper engineer. Sometimes there'll be just two. There'll be an author and the paper engineer also did the illustrations or also wrote the book and did the pop-up, the whole thing. So if you need anything for a citation, you need to know that you may need to look for several things when you're working with pop-up books, which is a little different than just a regular two-dimensional book. A little bit about the history of them, because a lot of people think this is a really new invention, and they've just seen them around for a few years. Well, they actually started being used in the 13th century. But at that time, they were just a technique that were used for maps and for things for holy days. Then we get to the 16th century, and this is when they were first published as books, but they were used for astronomy and for medical books. And I'm not going there. Okay? Then in the 18th century was when they became actually kind of the format that we are more familiar with today. There was a man in England whose name was Robert Sayer, and he did these books that he called harlequinades, and they're really the forerunner to the movable books like as we know them now. Now in the 19th century was when they really came into being, and it was called the golden age of pop-up books, and I'm going to show you just a couple of the ones that were really big and instrumental in making these popular. And one of these is a German man whose name is Lothar Meggendorfer, and he eventually did pop-up books the way we think of a pop-up, but the ones that that we're going to show you now are kind of how he started it, and they have the tab move things. So this one is called The Genius of Lothar Meggendorfer.
So the first tab?
The first tab, please. Okay, and if he pulls the little thing at the bottom, she washes the window, and the lady's mouth moves. So they have movement, but they don't pop up. And actually you can't tell with this, but if you come up and look afterwards, there's a clear plastic over there, so it looks like a glass window that she's watching. But that was the early part of that. And then if you'll do the second one, and this is actually how this is all put together on the inside. So you can see how the movements work that make this actually happen. And it's rare to find this in the back of the book. There are all kinds of books on making pop-ups, but it's really rare to see just one little insert, and I think that's kind of cool. So that's Lothar Meggendorfer. And our next one, who was really big in the history, was an Englishman whose name was Ernest Nister. And again, we're not talking, just that one you can do anyone. Ernests all look the same. But he did what were called revolving wheels, and it changes the picture. Now, Meggendorfers are a little harder to find. Nister is pretty easy. For some reason, he's hit a big popularity, and you can get those in a lot of places. And this was like Victorian times, so his are mostly like little sweet, sugary kind of poetry with little children who are all clean and well behaved and dressed nicely, but they're kind of fun. Okay. Now the third historical one, and then we're going to go on to the current things, is much later, and this book actually belonged to my son, and I'm so proud of him because he didn't tear it up. I can't believe it. He probably never read it. But Hallmark and Random House came out in the 1960s. And of course, Hallmark, you know, are the greeting card people, and Random House publish people like Dr. Seuss, getting you kind of a perspective of who they are. And they did pop-up books, but they are so much simpler than some of the things I'm going to show you than we started out. And this is their book on dinosaurs. And so you can see he just kind of comes up right out of the middle of the page. And even the rest that are in there are very, very simple. See, the little side tab things. And again, when we're done, anybody who wants to is welcome to come up and look at them. And I let you touch them, which is really nice, because most collectors won't. And I figure, why own one if nobody's going to play with it? So, but play carefully. Okay, and then we got to our current time for pop-up books, and it's now called the second age, golden age of pop-ups. So, you know, we started with the first age, was with Beckendorfer, then Meggendorfer, then nothing happened for quite a while, except the Hallmark variety things. And then a man came along who is now one of the most, in fact, probably the most famous paper engineer in the world, and his name is Robert Sabuda. And so the difference in what you saw for dinosaurs in the 1960s and what you will see for Robert Sabuda, here is...
You go to the first one?
Go to the first page on this one. Is really quite a big difference.
Oh, wait, here we go. Gotta go.
There, yeah.
Tough to get it all in.
It is hard to get them all in. It's a very large pop-up, and it's very detailed. And when he started, people got really, really interested in it. And so this is for Alice in Wonderland, and this is, oh, and go back to that. At the bottom of that page, okay, you see this where it says open me? Okay, if you're going to have somebody falling down the rabbit hole, how do you make that happen in a pop-up? In this one, you pull this up, and there's this little hole, and this is a technique that's called a tunnel. And if you could see down there, you see her way down small at the bottom of the tunnel. She has fallen down because of that technique. And so that's pretty cool. So make sure if you do decide to come up that you take a look at that, because that's cool. So Robert Sabuda with, and the side page too. Oh, what else you want to show him? It's autographed. I know Robert Sabuda. No, I've actually met him. But
You want the other page?
show them on the side page on this one, I think.
There's the cards.
Oh, with the act, yeah. Do the card. The last page is the cards. And this, I love this one, because you know the story, the cards fly everywhere. And so this is made a technique that kind of, when you do it, it kind of goes across like an arch. But by doing all the cards with it, when it pops up, it gives that whole thing of the cards flying away. Yeah. And then that page should also have a side pages.
These ones?
Yeah. And those run throughout the book, but we'll look at it on here. And this is one technique that he made very, very famous, and now everybody does it, is making the story with little bitty pop-ups on side pages. And so that's pretty cool. And they're so detailed. It does take them over a year to do one. Usually if it's a book like this big a deal, and they are all made by hand. So when you look at a pop-up book and you say it costs $25 or $30, you go, well, that's really expensive. These books are all made in other countries, not here, and the only part that becomes, it's made in all white paper first, then it's done again, and this is the paper engineer, does it all in color. They all say the hardest part is making it close back in, not popping up. And when they're satisfied, the publisher is satisfied, it's shipped to places like China, Taiwan, numerous other countries. And there is a big machine that will punch out the pictures, so you end up with what looks like a page for paper dolls, if you remember those. And then that's the last mechanical thing that could be done. There are rows of people sitting just like you, but they're all doing something on a page. Pass it down, somebody else does something on a page. Robert Sabuda did a book called Dinosaurs, And it was, if you remember the Bluebonnet books from when you were in elementary school, it's the only pop-up that's been on that. That book has never gone out of print. So from the first day that was made, there are people sitting there gluing together dinosaurs. It's quite amazing to me. So it's well worth the money. Okay, our next famous person, I'm going to introduce you to the three most famous ones that we have right now in the second golden age, is a man named Matthew Reinhardt. He came to Denton and did a show, and we're actually working, trying to get him to come back again. But
We have this in the studio, so there's a lot of people that are...
there, yeah, this is his book that's called The Pop-Up Book of Phobias. And I've marked the page that is my phobia. Snakes. I hate snakes. And so that's in there, but there's dentists in there. There's all kinds of things in the phobia book. And if you've not seen it, it's fun to look at. The nice thing about Matthew Reinhardt is I can pick up his books and frequently.
Sorry,
there we
I'm
go.
going off script, sorry.
Feel free, Vanna. I can pick up one of his books in a bookstore and not be instantly sure that it's him. Robert Sabuda, I can almost always tell you is Robert Sabuda. Matthew Reinhardt likes to make whatever he likes to make. And so here are two different examples. He did phobias, and then this one is on Noah's Ark. And he is very dim colors in there. This one, he uses bright colors, and he uses color very emotionally in this one. So you've got the dark thunderclouds, the bolts of lightning, the water's blue, but the ark, is colored yellow. It's the important part here, and it's an important part of biblical history. So he uses his colors very effectually. The other thing that he does that's very unusual here is most things when you outline them in what? Black. He outlines everything with white in this book. So there's a lot of different techniques that can be used, and I think he's a master at doing that. He just published his second Star Wars book. My baby son, who's 44, got it for Christmas because he never outgrew Star Wars, and we're hoping to be able to get him. He hasn't, said anything, but we have contacted him from the Center for Visual Arts, see if he'll come back and do a whole Star Wars thing with us. We're hoping, so cross your fingers.
Can you see the other spread?
Yeah, you can show me anything you want. Yeah, this is the animals on the ark, which is quite impressive, I think. And at the front, there's a really impressive boat, ark, excuse me. So if you get, really interested in this, feel free to come and look afterwards. He does beautiful work, I think. I really like him. I used to really like Robert Sabuda, and I still do, but I know Matthew Reinhardt too. No. I'm really beginning to appreciate his work very much. This is the third most famous one probably at this point in time, and this is David A. Carter. Now maybe when you were little you read, he had little books that are called Bugs in a Box, and he did Christmas bugs in a box and Easter bugs in a box, and they were little counting books. Well, he does a lot things that are a lot more impressive. And this one, you can go to just first page. He has a whole series of books, I think they're on probably 4 or 5 of them now, that are all done with geometrics. And this one gives you at the bottom things to look for. And hence, in this particular book, you're always looking for the red dot hidden somewhere in the geometrics. And there's a blue spot, and there's something else. His newest one is called Hide and Seek, and he has a lot of words hidden in it. And that's kind of interesting, too. So, what?
This one?
You do that one, yes. I know you're going to be doing tools. So if you end up with a saw, this is just done with serrated cardboard, and it goes back in, so it makes that sound. Isn't that cool? And that's really cool. So I like him a lot. All right, this group is called, is another man who does a lot of books. He's well known. And this one is called Trail. And it's a really good example of how you can just do one color. This entire book is done in white. And on the side of the books, or if you can see kind of down in the corner, it's a poetry book. And the poetry is on wheels. So you can turn the wheel and the lines of poetry show up. Can you see it down here? And the lines of poetry change. Another thing that he's done with this, besides doing all white that's interesting, is there are butterflies in here, and they're up like there at the top of the page. And instead of being on paper so that when they're flying you see the paper holding them up, they're on clear plastic. So you can use a lot more than just regular paper. See? So it's harder to see them up there. Now the other thing that he's done really interesting, because he kept everything white, is if you go to the very last page, is the one that's only one that has any color, and this is really hard to make show up here because you have to hold it at the angle. He's used silver to do a reflecting pool, and if you kind of peek under where some of those plants are, there's just a little bit of green underneath there, and I don't know if we can do it with the
Yeah, we're getting some of the little
get a
purple
little
letters.
bit of it in there, yeah. So if you do come and look, just make sure you kind of hold that and angle it a little bit so you can see it under there. Oh, there you go. Good job. Yeah. So I think it's a really different technique using one color. It's very, very impressive because it sets a mood and it shows tranquility. We're out in really tranquil nature. Whereas, with Matthew Reinhardt, when we did the Ark, he had all those dark colors showing the storm and the clouds and everything. So it's totally different. So pop-up books, it's really easy if you think about it to do, to set that mood and things that you wouldn't think it would be. This one is just kind of fun. It's by Marion Batali. And it's a numbers book. It's 1 through 10. And this one is only the colors black and white. But when you open a page and then go forward. No. Okay, fold it. That's what you do. Unfold it. The 4 becomes a 7. Yeah. So the 3 becomes an 8, and it's just using that's a really simple mechanism, that kind of shelf thing that comes out of, but then made more difficult by the fact that you can change the number on either side. So I think it's a really effective technique because it's basically mutates from one thing into another, so it's real simple, but it's also very intelligent. So it's not just your count your numbers book, like here's 1 cat, here's 2 dogs, here's 3 pigs. it's a different thing with it, and I like it a lot. And she now has one out also on ABCs that works the same way as this one, which is kind of cool. Oh, and now would you just like to talk about this one?
I'll be quiet.
You be quiet. I brought this last semester. He went home and ordered it immediately. So I asked him if he wanted to talk about it. This is Nick Bantock, who is one of my favorites. He writes books and illustrates them. He does pop-up books. He's just really good. And this is his version of the poem Kubla Khan. And it's done in just lost the word, collage technique, and does a lot of dark colored things, and his art is always real edgy. It's not like looking at Peter Rabbit. It's very, very different, and he has really great illustrations in it, in the things that come up. So I like that one, and it's got a lot of, the techniques that he uses with collage and everything are really different. So he's also done, with poems, he's also done Robin Hood and Solomon Grundy. So that is Nick Bantock. So he's a name you might want to remember. I brought along one also that I didn't bring before. It's called Papagama. Papagami. And I brought this one because you don't have to have a lot of special materials to make a pop-up book, actually. You need a ruler and a scissors and a pencil and, so really basic stuff that you pretty much have anyway. Usually, you're going to invest in some nice, crisp paper. But this one will show you, just go to the first page, that this one is all made with things that are found objects. So here's your newspaper that you just got laying around your house. And I don't know what parameters you have on the assignment that you're going to be doing. And I do know you have to also do some painting, but you could just do a watercolor wash over something like that and add color, and it would be different. Also, the thing that I thought was neat about this is because almost everybody at some time in their life has done a project in school with origami. And so this book also uses origami and then makes them pop up by placing them on a flat surface, which is how this one works. It's origami ducks, and that they're actually swimming on a pond. And there's just an office memo up there in the corner. I don't know, where the text is gone. So I thought it was very, very creative, something different to think about. Okay, now some of the, I have to always watch where I'm going. He told me this is the longest cord in the world. He was right. He was not kidding. Yeah, and then we'll put them all down here at the end so you can look at them again. I want to show you some now that just have interesting formats. So if you're not confined to just working to pages like a book, you can do whatever you want to do. This one is by a man named Kees Moorbeek, who's also very well known. And Kees is K-E-E-S. But you remember how to open it?
Holes, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it pops up, but it pops up out of a box. And eventually, you can just hold it up long like this. So that's definitely three-dimensional. I took this one to a class of 4th and 5th graders I was working with, and when I finished unrolling it, I just held it up, and they looked at it and said, they're always so far ahead of me when they're 4th and 5th graders. It's disturbing. But they said, held it, and they said, oh, that looks just like a stairway going into the story. And I was like, yeah, it does. So I thought that is, if you have the patience to work with that, I think that's a really cool way to do it. This one is one of the early ones that I had, and it's called Hot Pursuit. It's by the same man who did the square box with for Goldilocks, but this one is it's called a forward and backup pop-up book, and you can never finish reading it until you get tired of it. So if you start at one side, but you follow the arrows and you go up and around and down, and it's the princess chasing the knight, or whichever order all these are in, and chasing the, and then he's chasing the dragon, and the witch is chasing, whoever, and then you just turn it around and go back, and then you start all over again. It's kind of cool concept, I think. So this one, they are on both the front and the back instead of being a one-sided pop-up. The characters have, on both sides, have painting on them. I thought that one was fun. All right, this one I didn't bring you last time. And this is called The Sensational Samburger. And you can see the shape is a hamburger. David Pelham is the paper engineer who did Trails, which was that very serene one in all white. Same man. Gone a little crazy for this one. He's making a hamburger. And there's always something in the burger that you don't want. So
I am so getting this one.
uh-oh. I just think this one is so much fun. Now this is one I bought used. So it's kind of falling apart a little bit, but if I find a treasure and I want it and it's in a junk shop, I don't care. I just buy it. If it's not a major. I don't like them when the kids have torn all the heads off the things, but otherwise I'm okay. So I think that one's pretty fun. And like I say, 2 techniques, because he's the same one who did Trails, which was totally different look. Let's see, what else I want to show you. Okay. This one, graphic novels are a really big thing. You know, it used to be comic books, and they were like, no, no, no. But this one is The Incredible Hulk. Do you remember The Incredible Hulk? The green guy on, used to be a TV series. One interesting thing about this is just it's not a square book either. Almost, but not quite. And then it uses that graphic technique for telling the story, so there's not a regular story. But it has the Hulk as the pop-up character in the middle of all these. So, you know, if you think, well, I would like to just really do comics, you could do your assignment as a comic book if you want to. It's legal. And he made a whole lot of money off of that book, so it's still very, very popular. This one is called The Tombs of the Pharaohs, and I like this one as another example of format. It's for thinking of something that doesn't just look like a regular book. And so this is obviously done so it looks like a pyramid, and then on the inside these little pockets open which have the information that you need. So that's a real possibility for a way to make something that is also a way to pop up, because that actually does, and to get your information across to everybody else. I think that's kind of interesting. I like that one. And you'll run across any number of these that are in shapes like this. I have one called the 6 Brave Explorers, which is also a pyramid, a half a pyramid shape, and it opens this way to make a whole pyramid. So there are all kinds of possibilities. This one is called Peter and the Wolf. You all remember that? I bet you they taught you that in music class somewhere, didn't they? And this one is different because it's a stage. So first of all, you just open it that way, and then the pages open up from the top and come down. So it's like a theater setting for Peter and the Wolf. And that makes sense to me because most often that's what you see Peter and the Wolf is either you know, animated thing for it, but you all see it done as a stage play. And so that's a really good choice by that paper engineer to do that, to show it. Okay. I was asked by someone if I had paper blossoms. There it is. This is a wordless picture book, a pop-up book, excuse me. There is absolutely no story to this. This has only one intention, and that is to be the setting for your dining room table. And so if you will open to the middle, and there are bouquets like that with placemats and things under. There are side elastic bands that hold it flat. So it is meant to be used for your dining room table. So just don't spill your food on it, and you're in good shape. And the flowers will last forever. It's really amazingly done. It's really, really a pretty piece of work, I think. It's done. Paper engineer's name is Ray Marshall, and I think it's quite astounding. Yeah. And the last one I'm going to show you is you did buy this one too. This is my favorite, my absolute all-time favorite. And if you're an art major, this could end up being yours. This is called Botticelli's Bed and Breakfast. And so it opens up. It opens up as a carousel, and it's meant to be tied together, and we'll do that at the end. So it sits around like this. There you go. It has, the B&B has gargoyles on the roof.
I think I just have to do that.
Yeah, there you go, because you can look at it closely. It has things in there like David, the statue David, is in the bathroom brushing his teeth. Whistler's mother is sitting in front of Whistler's mother is sitting in front of the fireplace.
Oh, she's there, trust me. She's in there.
Yeah, I think it's Mona Lisa who's bringing up a tray of wine from the wine cellar. I mean, it's just totally so much fun. And it does have, unless I've taken it out, and there she is. Yeah. But it does have, and I may have left it in there and I may have taken it out. Yeah, see, I keep losing it, so I must be careful. A little guide, so if you don't know who somebody is, you can look them up and find out, because they're all famous art, all famous works of art. There we go. So you can see who everybody is in there. And that just fits in a little pocket inside the B&B. I think it's amazing. I really like it. Had it forever and ever. Which gets me, is that all of them? Yes, to the point of where to get these. I buy a lot of used ones because I know that you can sometimes find real treasures at going to yard sales or junk sales or those kind of places. Sometimes still shrink wrap because the child who got them went, I don't like the books, I'm not reading. But you've seen these, I think, have learned that pop-up books are not necessarily just for children, which is a thing people go, oh, well, that's a little kid's book. And it's not. I'm finding that most adults enjoy them as much as kids do, especially ones that are very artistic and really well done. You can buy them at Barnes & Noble, and most of the time they do not have a very good collection. They used to put them all together, which made it really easy to look for, but now they have distributed them and they just put them in with the regular books. So unless you know one exists, you can't find the new ones. And that for me is difficult. I liked to go and just see what was out there, but now I have to know somebody has one, so I have to do a lot more internet searching in order to be able to buy it at Barnes & Noble, though I still do occasionally. One of the best sources is Amazon.com. I buy a lot of them from Amazon. You can just order them, and don't be afraid if you read the description carefully to buy used ones. A lot of mine are used. I do that on purpose because I have a collector friend who just does regular books, but she will not let anybody open them and touch them and do anything because they're her collection. I'm like, why bother? You know, I think books are meant to be touched and loved and cared, you know, just enjoyed by everybody. So, you know, mine just, everybody touches them, and it's like, well, if something happens, I hope it won't, but it can be replaced in most instances. So that's where you find them if you get interested in it. Do you have any questions you want to ask me before we move them over? Yeah, thank you. I made a special little run into the bookstore today to see if they still have them because I did last semester. They have a nice collection right now at the bookstore. And so if you go back in the corner, when you go into the door and you go back to the right-hand side and you go back in the children's book section, they have, to the left-hand side of the children's book section, they have a lot of pop-up books. In fact, they have one I don't own, so I may have to go shopping. But there are a lot of them there, and so that's another place to look and kind of see what they come up with. So I kind of have the feeling that maybe if people are buying them, that's something they will keep adding to. So I would think they were. So they are at the UNT bookstore in the Student Union. So do you have any questions before we put them out for you to look at? They're shy. I have never met a shy college student, but I'll go for it.
How does one become a paper engineer?
Actually, the Robert Sabuda and Matthew Reinhardt, and I don't know about David Carter, they actually went to the Pratt Art Institute in New York City and started there. Now, Matthew Reinhardt will tell you that he really learned the technique mostly from Robert Sabuda. He went to that art school and he learned to do a lot of things, but then he did an internship with Sabuda, and that's where he really got into it, was doing that. But you can go to art school and learn to do it.
Which they are right now.
Exactly. Anybody else?
Do you have any of Maurice Sendak's pop-up books?
Who, Maurice Sendak? I have a couple where he wrote the introduction to somebody else's pop-up book, but I don't have one that is just by him. And I've been watching actually for Where the Wild Things Are, because I think it would be a really wonderful pop-up book. But I need to go on Amazon or something and see if anybody ever did one, because I don't know that.
How many pop-up books do you have?
I'm too lazy to count, but I do know just from the shelf space that it takes up in my guest room that there are hundreds. And I usually bring somewhere between 20 and 25 with me when I do a lecture. One of my friends who comes to visit me from Oklahoma tells me it's just like staying in the children's corner of the library. And I am sorry about that, but I don't have that many overnight guests, so that's where you go. You have to have somewhere to put them. Any other questions?
Have you attempted to create one yourself?
Not for publication. I do workshops a lot, and I do them with giving people real simple directions to make really basic ones, and I do that a lot with elementary school kids who love to try it. I did one years ago with second graders at the request of a second grade teacher, and she wanted them to do it as a math lesson to learn to measure the base and have the thing pop up. Well, she told me when I saw her a long time after that for weeks, you know how little kids like to leave notes? She'd leave her classroom and come back in and something would be on her desk and she'd open it, it would pop up. So we were more successful than we thought we would be. I've done them for teachers in the Denton School District as a group so they could teach their kids how to do it as an art project. But those guys are so good, I think I'll stick with what I do. Yes?
Less of a question, more of a statement. Our university's rare book collection has one of the best collections of pop-up books. So after she is not today, you're like, oh, I wish I could see more. Make an appointment with the fourth floor in Willis Library, and they'd be more than happy to show you what they have.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. I have seen that collection, and they have some astounding things. There, you know, the first time I went, I couldn't believe that I was actually looking at a real Lothar Meggendorfer. I mean, mine's a reproduction. I couldn't afford. I'd have to sell my house, my dog, you know, everything. But but they have things like that, and so if they will pull them out of the archives for you and let you look at them.
Well, we'll do that. We'll set these out on the tables right here, and obviously not everyone can crowd up, but people that are really dying to can elbow their way up and check out some of them in person. So please join me in thanking Nancy again for coming.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.